Transition Awareness Breathing. Feeling grounded for both children and parents is essential for healthy living and learning. Join Eartha Powell on this series for tips and tools for creating a harmonious environment for learning. Transition Awareness Breathing will help you and your child find an individualized path to tackle change, promote lifelong learning, and discover new approaches to calmness.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Eartha, and this is Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast. Thank you for coming back. We are on a journey to improve the World Happiness Score here in the United States. And although that might seem pretty broad, I think we can use the information that we've been talking about these past few episodes to really look at ourselves, look at our, what I call our area of touch, and to improve our personal happiness score. And then as a collective result, improve the World Happiness Score of the United States. And maybe, we can ponder and ask, well, why? And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before I get started, I would like to thank Web Talk Radio for allowing me to have a platform to bring transition awareness breathing to you. And to my producers, Mary Lou and Sam, thank you for making Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast available to my listeners everywhere they go. Okay, so why is this so important? I mean, big deal. The World Happiness Score. There's so much going on in the world. Who cares? Well, I care, and I think if you're listening to this podcast, I think you care. And maybe not so much on the broad sense of the World Happiness Score as it is referenced in the reports. But I think if we really do a self-analysis, a self-assessment of ourselves, I think most of us are trying to improve the happiness score in our lives. And so oftentimes we just don't know where to start. And so let's use this benchmark of the country that was the result of the Pew surveys that was found to have the happiness score rating, which was Finland. Not to say that we are trying to be like Finland. We can learn from Finland. As I had talked to you a few episodes ago, in Finland's perspective, it's kind of hard to be the happiest country because they are trying to change the stigma of mental health. There is a perception that, how can we have mental health problems, anxiety, depression, and worry when we have been, found to be the happiest country in the world. And so there's a stress that they are trying to work through, as well as other things. Their educational system is changing, the shortage of teachers, and different stressors in their part of the world. And so if we look at that benchmark, I can conclude, and I ask you could please don't agree with me, but I can conclude if the happiest country in the world is trying to put forth initiatives to improve their mental health system and take away the stigma that if one has depression or anxiety and a person needs to reach out to a mental health facility, that is a form of weakness. Finland is actively trying to take away that negative stigma. So if that country is rolling up their sleeve to address changing a stigma, surely we can roll up our sleeves and look at what can we do to improve our quality of life. Well, quality of life, what does that mean? Let me share it with you again, as I think I talked about a little bit about the quality of life in the beginning of our episode. The World Health Organization looks at quality of life, or defines quality of life as standard indicators that is in the perception of an individual's culture, value systems, their goals and expectations. And included in that is the quality of wealth and employment, the environment, physical and mental health, education, recreation, leisure, social well-being, religious beliefs, safety, security, and freedom. And that, I think, is a pretty detailed list. Detailed in it gives a focus on the quality of life, but vague enough that these topics can be looked at within our own individual life, our own individual culture, our own individual family unit. So some things, I think the first step in coming up with a plan of action is to recognize where we are at, maybe using some form of measurement standard. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I like to use a scale, something like a pain scale, if you're familiar with a pain scale when you go to the doctor, and the healthcare professionals may ask you on a scale of 0 to 10, are you having any pain? 10 representing excruciating pain and 0 meaning no pain. I think, on a scale of, scale of 0 to 10, how are you as far as your satisfaction with your environment, and your environment within your own touch, from 0 to 10. And so if it's very uncomfortable, if it's up there in the rank of a 10, then maybe we can look at what can be done to decrease that to a lower number, and taking it a little step at a time, rather than saying, well, what can you do to bring that 10 down to a 0? How about what can be done to bring the 10 down to a 8? And using steps to bring it down to a 9 and then bring it down to an 8. And so I think breaking our action plan into small, reasonable, realistic steps is very important for success in changing our quality of life. And maybe taking one unit of the quality of life scale, because recognizing that some things on that list, maybe we really do not have a direct impact, at least not in our perspective yet. So starting with, the term you may have heard, some low-hanging fruit, the things that's kind of bothering you the most, starting there. And maybe it's a health quality of life. If your quality of life in your health, you feel that it can be improved, maybe the score from a 0 to 10, maybe it's an 8. It's like, well, I'm not terrible, but if I look at myself now, I think I can improve my health. I'm not where I was maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and I would like to improve that part of my life. And so starting there and recognizing, maybe even journaling, what am I doing to keep myself at a level 8? And so then coming up with steps to decrease that health perspective to maybe a 7. It may include exercise. It may include maybe not having dessert at every single meal. Maybe it's like, maybe just having dessert on a special occasion, or maybe just on the weekends. Just starting small. And recognizing that maybe, as I had indicated before, it's okay to reach out and get help. Maybe in the past, it's, you were taking medication for a certain condition, and for whatever reason, you kind of slacked off and said, I'm not taking that medication anymore. So I would suggest that reaching out and talking to your provider and reestablishing some health goals with your provider may be helpful. And so here, when we're talking about quality of life, and I used healthcare examples, but you certainly can also use the standard indicators of employment or environment, education, recreation, leisure, social being, religious belief, safety, security, and freedom. Again, reaching out and taking small steps to improve towards reaching a higher goal. And I think that is important when we can set a start date. So when we're doing our action plan, we've benchmarked. That was one of the steps we did. And now we're doing a self-assessment. We're looking at ourselves. Where can we improve? And maybe, you go, well, I don't know where I need to improve. I don't know. Because it's so overwhelming. I read one article, and I did this with my students this week, and I'll share it with you. It may seem kind of broad, but I think it's a good idea. And what it does, it asked to express your feelings as if you were a weather forecast person. So imagine, you're looking at the weather or listening to the weather, and they're saying, it's partly cloudy and there's a chance of rain or there's a thunderstorm. So if you're looking at your feelings, how would you forecast? How would you report your feelings in terms of a weather report? And so I share with my students that I felt partly cloudy and with a cool breeze. Now, to some people, and here we have to define our perspective, because some people may think, whoa, you're having a really down day. Are you okay? But in my perspective, I felt that, a partly cloudy day is very good. It relieves me of intense heat. And also I enjoy getting outside and working in the garden and doing things outside. So for me, that partly cloudy day with a cool breeze is like a 10. Well, maybe I'll say a 9. Yeah, work always got to leave a little margin for improvement. But at any rate, maybe you get the point. So, if you have a hard time choosing which standard indicator to start with, maybe grab your family member or a friend and give them a weather report, or write it in a journal and say what your weather report is. And then define what your perspective of your weather report is. This to kind of explain it. And then what are the steps? If you had to assign a range of 0 to 10, what would you be willing to do to bring and make a change from wherever you reported your number on the number scale? What would you do to bring it down maybe one level? And how long would you be willing to do that change? Maybe a day, maybe a week, and then with the goal of going farther down to the scale. And you may want to also set a goal. Maybe you don't want to go down to 0. Maybe going down a couple of points is it will improve your quality of life, and it will bring your sense of happiness to a higher level. So is this kind of coming together for you? How improving your quality of life score, your personal quality of life score, would improve your happiness score, and then that collectively with you, me, and whoever else is listening to the podcast, if we all do this, we're improving our happiness score in our part of the world, in our sphere of our touch of, the people who are around, our community. And with that, it contributes to the happiness score of the United States. Recognizing some of the indicators that make up the quality of life report, some things we do not have any control of. And so what do we do when we don't have control of, like, the political system? Well, some people say, well, you do have control because you can vote. Okay, that's right. We can certainly all vote, and that could be a contribution to that indicator. And then there may be some other things that you may come up with that you're contributing. If there's something that you feel that right now you don't have a control over, put it in the parking lot. I would say, don't eliminate it and don't ignore it. I would just say, just set it to the side. Because as the happiness score increases, I think you'll be amazed at how much energy and how much creativity will come out of your improvement of your happiness score and your quality of life. Another important part of our action plan, I think, to consider, to include, is what if I fail? What if I don't succeed plan? What if there's unexpected situations that kind of sideswipe us and gets us off of the plan? I think it's important to have a backup, and maybe, if I may say, to expect a period of time that will challenge us to get off of our plan, because life happens. And so to be realistic that, okay, if I'm on my plan, and if a certain situation occurs, what will my response be? Maybe the response would be, I'm going to stick to my plan no matter what. Or maybe it may be, I'll just modify my plan, because maybe the plan needs to be modified to include certain little distractors. And so it's a time of readjustment. And so actually, our backup plan is not a plan for failure, the backup plan is actually a period where we can reevaluate and adjust. And I think that's a little bit more positive, okay? But to include that, I think it's very important. But we've covered a lot today. And before I conclude, I would like to share a gift of a little bit of a mindfulness practice with you. I would invite you to get into a comfortable position. And maybe this can be part of your action plan to improve your quality of life, to include a few minutes of mindfulness practice. As you're getting into your comfortable position, notice any pressures or stiffness, and recognize that you're going to do the best you can, and your goal is not to hurt yourself or overwork yourself. It's to show compassion to yourself and to show kindness to yourself, and to speak positive to yourself, your inner talk. You're going to give yourself a pat on the back for trying, because this is a big step for you. Take a breath in your nose and blow it out your mouth. And as you're blowing, bring your awareness to the change of the temperature of the breath. The breath, the warmth. Do you feel any warmth? Any coolness? Is there any coolness? Appreciating the breath. And as we pay attention to our breath, I invite us to appreciate the level of wellness that we have right now. We may not be where we want to be, but right now we are thankful for where we're at. And take another breath in and blow it out. Thank you for your practice. Wow, our time goes by so fast. But I wanted to get this out, and I'm excited to share this information with you. Get yourself a journal, start writing it down, and I think we'll talk about this intermittently so that we won't lose our momentum. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you again next time.
Be sure and pick up a copy of Eartha's new book, Tab Mindfulness, Awareness and Coloring Activities in a Pandemic World. It's not just an ordinary coloring book. It features 23 illustrations to stimulate thought, relaxation, and creativity for anyone between the ages of 4 and 94. Increase your positive self-talk energy. Unlock new creative paths. Transform your time once or twice a week to create beautiful art while strengthening confidence, building positive self-talk, and sensitize self-awareness. Tab Mindfulness, Awareness and Coloring Activities in a Pandemic World. It's available now at Amazon.com.